Hey, what's up? This is Gary from Raz Rentals, and today, well, I'm going to do something a little different. Today, I'm going to talk about two brand new Muckman glow-in-the-dark variants by two different companies, and, compare them. Have a little battle, if you will. The original 1990 Muckman action figure was always one of my favorite Ninja Turtle action figures. He had the grossest and best detail, I think, out of maybe any Ninja Turtle action figure in existence. When Super7 eventually released their brand new Muckman and Joe Eyeball Ultimates action figure, I was amazed at how good of a job they did of copying all those disgusting, gross details. And then when they started making glow-in-the-dark action figures, the first thing in my mind was, well, they need to make a Muckman glow-in-the-dark action figure. But we had to wait for some reason. Like, they released glow-in-the-dark foot soldiers? Are you kidding me? Give me Muckman. But don't worry, I bought one of those glow-in-the-dark foot soldiers. Also, while I was waiting for Super7 to announce their eventual Muckman and Joe Eyeball glow-in-the-dark action figures, NECA surprised me by releasing one first. I was stupefied, I was so excited to get him and talk about him. But as usual, I'm super slow with my reviews, so he's been sitting here in a box since what? When the heck was that? March? April? It's been a long time. And then eventually, Super7 released their glow-in-the-dark Muckman action figure. So I had to get him. And I got him a few weeks ago. But again, he's just been sitting here next to my review table, still in box. Two glow-in-the-dark Muckman variants in box? That can't be. I can't let that happen. So I figured, since I already did my Ultimates compare with the original Playmates toy, and I also did my Fred Wolf compare with the cartoon, I know, both shameless plugs. I figured I would talk about these guys at the same time and have a battle. I even wrote down some categories. And at the end, we'll tally up all the points and figure out the score and see who won. And I'll discuss who I thought should have won if it's not who I thought it should be. All of this is subjective, so don't take it to heart if you think I'm wrong with any of these categories. This is just supposed to be fun, all right? And if you disagree with me, you can tell me how wrong I am in the comments. And also, if you're a fan of Muckman, I did a deep character history and 1990 Playmates review. I know. Another shameless plug. All right, so let's begin. As you can see here on this paper, I have some categories. I have packaging, mint on card display, sculpt. What's supposed to be after sculpt is color scheme. I thought about that later, all right? Articulation, can the action figure stand? Accessories, Joe Eyeball, fun with goo, and eventually glow power. So, a lot of this is going to be unscripted and just kind of, winging it and having a good time. So first up, packaging, all right? Now, the Super7 packaging comes in the standard Ultimates, mailer, this brown box. It's providing extra protection to the action figure inside, This is kind of like... This is like Super7 trying to have a little extra compared to other companies, I guess. Come on. It also comes wrapped in a plastic bag. Jeez Louise. And finally, you have the box. Now, unfortunately, I creased the side of this when I was trying to pull it out of the mailer. It creased and crunched and bummer. But this is, I don't know, this color is close to sanitation orange, I guess. All right, so far, both packages are looking nice. The front of this has this very cool manhole cover with some glow-in-the-dark splatter all around. The NECA one, though, has some actual really nice-looking artwork, and it's glowing, like Muckman glows in the cartoon whenever he's draining the Ninja Turtles' power. Or I guess they just get weak from Muckman's muck. On the back of this, you have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles written right there. Also has glow-in-the-dark goo around it. This has a glow-in-the-dark... I can feel the glow-in-the-dark when I touch it. The back of this has some very nice action shots. That's great. It has a very nice description. That's even better. And it has even more artwork. It has these nice drawings of Muckman and Joe Eyeball. So there's a lot of cool things happening here. What I really like about this glow-in-the-dark Muckman from NECA is that it's supposed to be part of a series here. This NECA, well, it says Toxicity now, SHS. What is S? Superheroes series. I don't know if that means they're all supposed to glow in the dark or who's all supposed to be involved in this, but he is number 1. And he matches those old VHS tapes just like all the deluxe figures from NECA. So if you open this up, just talking about the packaging, not the guy, right? You have this brick packaging all around. You still have a lot of goopy glow-in-the-dark paint all over, which is nice. Then on the back here, you have the description of Muckman, which is, you had a description on there, and then now you have it on here, which is all good. This just says the standard Muckman information from the regular Ultimates Muckman action figure. The NECA one, you open it up and you just have this very nice action shot of glow-in-the-dark Muckman. Oh, you know what also is really nice about these NECA action figures? Is down at the bottom, it tells you everybody that worked on this. So, design and development, Randy Falk, Trevor Zammit, sculpt and fabrication, Tony Cipriano, Jay Kushwara, paint. You have all these people. The important ones for this category is packaging, Jason Langston, and illustrations by Dan Elson, who did all the illustrations for the deluxe figures. The final pictures, that is. All right, so I sort of lean towards NECA. I think it has a nicer aesthetic. I like that it's based off of the VHS tapes. I like if you were a mint on card collector and you just wanted it closed like this, the packaging just looks really nice. You could line them up all on your wall just like your old VHS tapes. On the back here, I think the action shots are a nice inclusion here, because there's some really cool looking ones. Like I really like Muckman looks creepy there with his teeth aren't glowing, but the rest of his body is. And just the illustrations I just think are fantastic. I think Dan Elson always does a really good job of drawing these. Where, the Super7 packaging is classic at this point, and I think it's nice. I like the slipcover. I like the manhole and everything like that. But it's also very plain, all right? It's plain. Even the brick motif is cool, it's nice. It's sort of based on those original Playmates action figure cards from back in the day. But I don't know, there's just something extra special about this NECA one. So before I make my final decision, let's see how these glow in the dark. Now, it might be a little hard for you to see this, but the glow-in-the-dark NECA box is just wonderful. It's awesome looking. There seems to be like some shading, or maybe that's just because you just kind of have this film of glow-in-the-dark stuff on those guys. There are actual it looks like there's actual levels or depth between Joe Eyeball and Muckman. It's very nice looking. The splatter of the manhole is okay on the Super7 side, but there's just something so much cooler, I guess, about the NECA Muckman and Joe Eyeball drawn by Dan Elson. So call me crazy if you want to, but I have to give packaging to NECA. It just seemed to have gone above and beyond. There we go. They got one. All right, so next up is mint on card display. Now, this is just how well do these guys look in box. It's all about presentation, all right? All right, so this one seems to be a tough one. I'm having a hard time deciding who I think looks better. Both of them do a really good job of showing off all of the accessories. They both have nice big bubbles or windows so you can actually see the figure really well. It looks like behind the figures, behind this Muckman, it looks like there's some artwork from the cartoon or some painting to look like artwork from the cartoon. And behind him, it's just pink or orange. So nothing special on the Super 7 side. All right, so pros and cons here. All right, the pros for NECA is that you can see all of the accessories even more clearly than you can the Super 7 ones. Because if you look at Joe Eyeball here, he is hidden inside of the Muck Pack, all right? The Muck Gun is all the way in the back here, and a lot of it is obscured by big giant Muckman right here. Now, there really was no way for them to avoid that, I guess, because he's such a big action figure, and they already have him crammed in a much bigger box than the usual Ultimates action figures. Here, the NECA Muckman, you can see everything very clearly. Like, you can see the Rockalizer really well right here. You can see all of Joe Eyeball's body. There's his Muck Pack. And you can also see the Mutagen down at the bottom. Both of them have wires to hold the figure in place, which I guess can be a little distracting. It only looks as though there's one wire keeping the Super 7 action figure in place, while there's multiple ones keeping the NECA one. I guess if I had to pick one, I would pick NECA's, all right? Just because, like I said, I think you can see every single item in there. I think the layout is nice, where you have the figure right in the center and everything is sort of surrounding him. I think that way you can see every single item and nothing is really obscuring anything. Really, neither is bad at all. I think both of them did a good job, but I just think because you can see everything with NECA's, that is probably a little better for mint on card collectors. So now I will give my points to NECA. So I'm going to open these guys up and I will talk to you in a little bit. I just want to say we are done with the inbox portion of the review, and I'm looking forward to pulling these guys out of the box already. So here they are, fresh from the package and ready to be judged excessively. All right, so in between the last shot and this shot, I lost my list, so I had to make a new one. And I made it even cooler. Look at that. I got little nice striped lines there. And look, a little semicircle down at the bottom there. That way we can put or a half circle. That way we can write the winner really big. All right, cool. Okay, so as you can see here, these guys come with a ton of accessories, which is all good. We're not going to go into that exactly yet, but I just wanted to, show these guys how everything they have to offer right off the bat. What's really cool about Super 7's Joe Eyeball is that they actually included a little plastic bag around him. That way he won't scuff or damage or whatever, scrape the inside of this Muck Pack before you got him. That's a really good idea. It's really nice when Super 7 does that. They should always do that, especially if the character has really yellow teeth that's almost like right next to the plastic window. This competition is going to get pretty tricky because, both of these guys are just fantabulous. They're fantastic. They're awesome to look at. Both of them are very eye-catching. And first up, we got to talk about is sculpts. And, originally I was going to give both of these guys like a tie for sculpts, because they're both doing different things. It's kind of tough to judge them against each other because one is supposed to look like the original Playmates toy, and obviously the one that's supposed to look like the cartoon is simplified and looks like the cartoon. But I also kind of thought that, that was a little bit of a cop-out, and I might as well, do what I can to tell you which one I prefer. I also think there's one thing to point out, one problem with one of the sculpts that I think, in my opinion, probably gives the win to the other one, but we'll get there. Let's start with the Super 7 sculpt. The Super 7 Ultimates Muckman, was such an amazing action figure who was based off of one of the greatest action figures of all time. I mean, the original Muckman is definitely like a top 10 action figure for me. The detail on him is just amazing and, cannot be topped. And I think whenever Super 7 decided to blow him up into an Ultimates, they did a really good job of copying all those details. Some of them were a little different, though. Like, I feel like that's a crater, and they made it into a flower in the Ultimates version. And then also, on his chest, I feel like that was supposed to be like an esophagus or some kind of internal organ, and they made that into a flower too. But other than that, like all the details were pretty much copied verbatim. You know, he looked amazing. I think they even added more details than were on the original action figure too, such as like milk being sculpted onto the milk carton here. I don't know. You got stuff like soda on the back of his arm. I don't know. All these things are really cool looking. The apple core on his butt, the spider, the fish. All those are on the original action figure too. I don't know. He's very cool looking. I just always loved how his leg just kind of melted into that manhole. So for what this guy is supposed to be, you know, he's supposed to be an upgrade of that original action figure. In my opinion, this guy is perfect. I even love the how his name tag here says Garson Grunge and has a picture of him in his human form. You know, I cannot praise the sculpt of this guy anymore. You know, he looks great. Even the mushrooms on his shoulder are just really cool looking. And even like how his arm turns into bone here. You know, all that stuff is great. Now, when you bring the NECA version next to him, which is based off the cartoon, you obviously lost a lot of that detail. You know, they simplified him quite a lot for the cartoon because the animators probably would have, you know, revolted and gone on a killing spree. It's because it's like you couldn't have animated this guy with all the detail. So they had to cut out a lot. I mean, you lost the mushrooms, the insects, the worms. He doesn't even have like the bone coming out of his forearm. On his abdomen, he's got like a mirror and an apple core. They still kept that like sort of flower looking thing. Flower esophagus piece. But like the legs are pretty much the same. You know, you have the this little trash can on this side, and then over here you have the manhole. He doesn't have pizza there though. So, like I said, I can't fault this guy for not being as detailed as this guy because he's not the same thing. He's a different version of Muckman, you know. So I can't fault that. I would say for what he's supposed to be, his sculpt is great. I feel like he almost perfectly captures Muckman perfectly. Even if you look at the back here, it's, I don't know. Both of them like really capture. You could definitely see how they tried to make this guy look like the original toy as much as possible in the cartoon. So, you know, I think they did a really good job. So what I'm trying to say with the NECA, where I feel like they dropped the ball, is the face, all right? If you look at this face, it looks a little longer than it should be, all right? In the cartoon, most of the times, Muckman's face is very circular, right? Like almost a perfect circle. And here it's just elongated, and it doesn't look necessarily right. It doesn't have the same proportions or something as he does in the cartoon, in my opinion. This is something that I had mentioned in my my Fred Wolf series review. If they would have just like widened this out a little bit, he would have looked really good. But just proportionally, there's just something off about it, you know. It's not enough to throw the figure and make you not want to have him because the NECA regular Fred Wolf Muckman is a pretty awesome action figure. But it's just something that you can't help but notice. You know, his likeness is just off a little bit. So in my opinion, the winner of Sculpt goes to Super7 Ultimates because, as I said before, I feel like the face is perfect for that original Playmates action figure. And I don't know. It's tough not to just automatically give it to the Ultimates just because of all the fine detail. But like I said, this is based squarely on the circular face. So up next is color scheme. You know, they decided to repaint these guys and make them completely different than how they originally appeared. So let's figure out who has the best brand new colors. You know, this Muckman, this orange kind of does slightly like, you know, match the original orange. Like, I mean, it's a completely different orange, but at least it's like still inspired by the orange of the original Muckman. Now here is where it's going to be really tough for me because I have a huge bias for this guy because my favorite color is green. You know, growing up, green was my favorite color. And everything about this guy to me is just super appealing. Like when I'm looking at both of these guys, my eyes just shoot right to him. But I will try to do my best to, see if I can break it down and be slightly fair about this. So the Super7 Ultimates Muckman, he's got, they try to paint all of the cool little details, everything that was neat on the original action figure, except for like the mushrooms and stuff, but maybe they just figured that was a part of his mucky skin or something. I don't know. But even the bones here are painted, which is very nice. I like the veins. That's all great. The paint is very, very clean too. I got to point that out. There's not a lot of slop on this guy, which is nice. Everything is painted clean. And I think all the colors make sense for the item that they're, connected to, I guess. Like the insects are all purple and the teddy bear, the clothespin, the soda bottles, purple. Those colors, I don't know. I think they work for all those items. Then you got like the nice veins in the stomach there. The flower looks really good, nice and clean. Let's take a look at this guy next to the original Muckman Ultimates action figure. Man. Like, you look at that guy, and you're just like... I guess it's not a green thing. It's just the colors look so cool on this guy. Like, I feel like even when you look at these two next to each other, you automatically go to this guy. Like, everything looks fantastic on him. You have, like, the different tones of green on his face. Even the frog was painted green and stuff. The mushrooms are painted on the regular Ultimates action figure. These are all like bright and neon colors. They're kind of like, I don't know, very 90s or very late 80s, I suppose. The banana on his head has a sticker on it too, which is nice. I mean, he's a very cool looking repaint. I originally thought that they should have molded him in like the green glow in the dark color, kind of like their Ninja Turtle action figures that were put up a couple months ago. But what can you do? Like, just, I don't know. I know this isn't about this guy, but I can't help but look at this guy. Like the different greens, even this like pussy cratery muck. I don't know what this is supposed to be. How it's just gooing out of his body. I don't know. That's all good. The pizza down here looks pretty nice. They still painted that all different colors and made it look very nice. It looks as though they still used a shiny paint for the tongue here, which is cool. A glossy paint. And they even kind of brightened up the name tag a little bit. This name tag was a little darker. So yeah, very cool. A very nice color variant for this guy. Now let's take a look at the NECA version. All right, so here you can see the the regular plain NECA Muckman next to this glow in the dark variant, and still I gotta say my eyes just kind of go whoop right to him. I don't know. I love how he's just like these multiple tones of green. I love the translucent green a lot. It reminds me a lot of like Necroplasm Spawn, which I never had, but I always wanted. I don't know, his just all of those different greens are just very eye-catching and cool. The regular NECA Muckman matches the cartoon perfectly, but like that green is not like a very appealing green to look at. It's kind of dark, it's kind of gunky looking. I guess that fits perfectly for his personality and who he's supposed to be, but I don't know, it's just that guy just looks really awesome to me. This makes a lot of sense too. It almost looks like whenever Garson Grunge and Joe Junkie get the mutagen poured onto their head. Now, I do have to point out, is in the cartoon, Shredder is trying to find Compound X7 at Tropotron Labs, but he actually doesn't find Compound X7. And Bebop and Rocksteady pour an unknown mutagen out the window on top of Garson Grunge and Joe Junkie, which turns them into Muckman and Joe Eyeball. So it's like almost like right before they become Muckman and Joe Eyeball, they kind of have that like greenish color on them, I don't know. It's almost like Slime Pit He-Man too. It's like that just that translucent green to me is just a very cool looking thing. I feel like I would buy any action figure made out of translucent green. I got a problem. You know, as I've aged too, it's weird because like I grew up, green was my favorite color, but blue has started to become like this new favorite color for me. Like I just love coloring things blue when I'm doing artwork. But sometimes you just get a green toy like this and you're like, wow, like that takes me back. You know, that's the kind of green I like. So you may think I'm crazy for picking who I'm going to pick here, all right? And I completely understand that. You know, this is very, very subjective, you know. I just think that despite him having all these very cool looking painted things all over his body, it just doesn't catch my eye as much as this guy. There's just something about that green hue that just, I like that a lot, you know. This one probably also could have been a tie, but I don't know. It's my game show and I get to pick who wins. That's it. It's not really anything at fault to Super7. I mean, all these details are painted really nice. It's just my personal preference. All right, that's all this is. It's a personal preference. I kind of wish that they would have made him the glow in the dark green like the Ninja Turtles. Up next is Articulation. And the Super7 Ultimates action figure has got some decent articulation. He's not super articulated. He has less than the NECA one, but I feel like all of his articulation works really well. First, you just have this giant joint for the head. It's a ball joint. You know, you can look down, not too much, look up a bit, look to the side, look to the other side, and you can rotate it all the way around if that's what you desire. If you want your Muckman to walk around like this instead. Hey, lady. All right. The shoulders rotate and they hinge. And this guy, I gotta say, his joints are very stiff. You know, I was surprised. I was like, wow. This guy, his joints feel like they're going to stay in place. His elbows can rotate around, and they also have a hinge. This one kind of gets blocked a little bit by this ooze or mutagen pouring out of his pore right there. I didn't really notice that on the other action figure that I remember. Maybe I did talk about that in the video. And then his hand here has a hinge and rotates around. What's interesting here is this hand actually disconnects from the peg. The peg stays in the wrist, while the other one, the peg is actually attached to the hand and connects to the forearm here. But this one rotates around a bit. It kind of gets stopped a little bit, but not as much as the other one. And you have the hinge too. He has no upper torso articulation, but he does rotate. You can kind of see that there's like a little bit of a lip here, but it's not that bad. You can kind of close it up a little bit so you don't even really notice it. The hips here have a ball joint. They rotate forward, back, outward like this. Then there's like a cut here by the ball there, so you can rotate the thigh around. There's like a little bit of a liquid in there. I think that's supposed to help with the joints moving or something like that. The knee joint here has a hinge, and it also swivels. This one has a same thing. Down here, the ankle joint swivels, and then the foot here has a rotation and ankle rockers. Same thing over here. This piece right here is separate from this piece right here, and that can actually rotate around. And then the foot here actually has like an ankle rocker and can also hinge. So that's all good. And you know, his hip articulation is actually pretty good. It feels like it locks in place pretty well, and he kind of stands in place pretty good. So over on the NECA side, this Muckman, you know, his articulation is actually very similar to the Super7 version. There's only just like a couple more points of articulation. Not much more, just a few. The head here has a ball joint. You can look up, you can look down. You can't really, I mean, you could rock it a little bit turn it to the side. You can rotate it, but you're not going to be able to rotate it completely upside down, I don't think. I don't know. Feels like I'm pushing it a little bit. The shoulders here rotate around. They rotate pretty good. They got a hinge right there. Now, the Super7 Ultimates version, you know, they had the swivel right in the elbow. This guy has a bicep cut, so you can rotate it there. I mean, he's got quite a lot of movement. Then you have the the elbow articulation, which is double joints, which I don't know, kind of. I mean, you can't really get much further than this though because of how bulky he is. The wrist rotates around, and you have a hinge there. He unlike the Super 7 Ultimates figure, he does have upper torso articulation, which you can rotate around a little bit. The waist rotates. He's got ball jointed hips where you can rotate outwards. You can rotate them forwards. They do just like the Ultimates one. There's a cut in here, so you can rotate them around that ball. The double jointed knees are okay. You know, they work fine. One is very stiff, and one is very loose. So you should be able to get him in more poses than the Ultimates version. This ankle over here has a hinge, and you also have ankle rockers. Same thing with over here, ankle rockers, and then that giant hinge there. I mean, that looks like a big wheel in there. All right, so they both have neck joints. They both have shoulder. They have rotation around the bicep. But he's got an extra elbow joint. They have the same wrists. This guy has torso articulation. They both have the same waists. They both have a very similar hip articulation. This guy has an extra knee joint. But he doesn't have that extra joint down at the bottom here. That extra rotation that he has. In fact, he has no rotation down at the bottom of his legs at all. So who has the better articulation? I guess if I had to pick the better articulation, it would be, I guess, NECA, just because you do have, like, you could really get into extreme poses with this guy. You were still somewhat limited with the Super 7 version, you know? Lots of points kind of stop, but that, like, some of that is just because of the sculpt. Like, he has a more simplified design, so it's easier to move these things around. I mean, he does have that extra upper torso articulation, and I guess if you were a fan of double jointed knees and double jointed elbows, which I'm not necessarily, you know, I think this guy is, I guess, you know, that's a benefit for you. So I guess NECA wins this one too. All right, up next, a very, very simple category here, all right? Can he stand? Now, as you can see here, they both can stand. And actually, you're going to find this really surprising, but the Super 7's, their articulation is actually pretty sturdy. Like, his hips are even more stable than the regular Ultimates Muckman action figure. I feel like the notches work pretty well. It's a little loose, but it's... I mean, the way he stands, it works really well for him. However, the NECA version here, all right? I've had him actually fall down on me a couple times if I don't have him hunched over enough, because this one leg right here, the articulation in the knee is very, very loose. Like, it doesn't catch on the notches at all. He just falls right over. So, the winner of Can He Stand goes to Super 7, because I haven't had any problems like that with him yet. He seems pretty sturdy and pretty stable. You know, hopefully he'll stay that way, and you know, hopefully your Muckman is the same way. All right. So if you were keeping score here, unfortunately for Super 7, the score right now is 4-2. I did that really sloppily right there. So 4-2, NECA has the lead. And unfortunately, for Super 7, up next is accessories. So to begin, they both have a muck pack, you know. The Super 7 one is really cool because it looks like it's molded in glow-in-the-dark plastic. It has this nice metallic paint, and all of the details here are nicely painted, like the fish bones and the pizza and the soda can, you know. That all looks good. The NECA trash can is pretty plain, you know. It's this dark green color, which I do like. It's like a, I don't know, is that like an emerald green or a winter green? forest green. Is winter green something? I think it's forest green. So, you know, it's nice, but it's simplified. You know, it doesn't have all those cool little extra details on it. And it doesn't have any glow-in-the-dark paint or anything like that on it. So installing the Muck Pack on the Ultimates action figure should be pretty easy. I mean, you just stick it in this hole here and try to push it in. It actually slid in there pretty easily. I just was on the... didn't have it in the right spot when I was trying to push it before. Looks pretty good. It's a nice, tight fit. Cleanly done. All right, let's move on. Putting the Muck Pack on the NECA Fred Wolf version is pretty easy too. You just got to stick it into the top right here. Oh my gosh, I missed the hole. This never happens, I swear. I'm having a hard time getting that in there. Now, you're never going to believe this, but I can't really get this thing in the hole. It seems like the muck on the side here is just, like, too narrow. Like, I don't know. I didn't have that problem with the original Muckman action figure. I can't get it in there. I've been using an X-Acto knife to try to trim off the sides a little bit there to get this thing to fit in. And all I can do is just kind of stick it in the top before you actually get into the hole. It kind of sticks in that way. They both include a very cool weapon. You know, the original one has the muck gun, which is nice. You know, it's made out of trash, all connected with these metal plates. It's made out of cans and ketchup bottles. It's got like the worm on it and everything. It looks just like the original action figure. Let's see if I can pull that out real quick. That's the design it was based off of. Very cool. And this was the regular version, the Ultimates action figure, which is also very cool. You know, a very, very cool weapon for Muckman to carry around. In the original cartoon, Muckman never used the muck gun, and instead of including like a Fred Wolf version of the muck gun that NECA could design on their own, they decided to release a different weapon, a weapon that has nothing to do with Muckman, but is also just a very cool weapon, and that's the Rockalizer. That's from the episode Rock Around the Block. You know, and this is... I love the color of this thing. It looks very neat. This was the original version that came with their plain, regular Fred Wolf Muckman. Oh, look at that. My rod has been bent. That's no good. But yeah, so this thing was used in the episode Rock Around the Block by General Trag. He could use this thing to bring like rocks or sediment to life. It's a pretty neat episode. I liked it a lot. I liked it when the giant rock monster punched the crap out of the Channel 6 building. That was nice. So I like the brand new color scheme of both of these items. I think they look pretty nice and neat. I like the shiny metallic paint, and I love the different greens on this thing. All right, next item. They both include 2 sets of hands. They both have a set of gripping hands, so they can hold their weapons with no problem, you know. And then the Super7 Ultimates one has these very cool, unusual hands, like this one where the muck is just kind of like stretching from his thumb to his pointer finger there. I love that thing. And this one is really cool too because it looks as though he is almost holding a ball of muck that he could throw at somebody. Nasty, but really cool. And then the NECA version, he just has like these grabbing hands, like he's trying to get you, you know. They're not expression hands because they're there's too much action in these hands. They definitely look like they're trying to scare or grab you. And that's it for the Super7 Ultimate side. On the NECA side, you also have an extra mouth, which works really well. You know, you can pop out the other mouth and pop that in there pretty easily. And then also included on the NECA side, but not included on the Ultimate side, is this Compound X7 from Tropotron Labs. Now, if you remember what I said before, was that Muckman was not actually mutated using Compound X7. It was an unknown mutagen. So this is still a very cool item. It's a nice nod to something they're talking about in that episode. It's got this nice sticker on it, you know. It's got this nice barrel. And we're going to take a look at the goo in a little bit. See if I can open this. So I was going to open this thing, but I decided not to. And I'll tell you why, all right? This was the one that came with my original Muckman action figure. And I opened it up, and it is completely liquid. It is like whatever makes this slime, it has completely, I guess, separated. Because it is pretty much just water. Can you see that with the light? The line of the water. I opened this up and just spilled this all over my pants right here. It looks like I had an accident. So I think I'm just going to let this one be, just because, you know, that way I have one that's, I don't know, presumably in better shape. But when we play with goo, we will use the Mattel slime I have. See, I thought originally that NECA was going to win accessories just because of the extra stuff they had. But now that I've had a few problems with the NECA action figure, including, you know, the reason why I'm not opening up that Compound X7 is because I don't see the point in opening it if it's going to turn into water. And like, you know, I mean, when did I open up the original Muckman? Like about a year ago? I mean, I have slime here in open containers that have been slimy since. You know, that's shouldn't go bad that quickly, right? Not to mention the Muck Pack wasn't plugging completely into his back. The weapons are cool, but that rod is bent right out of the package. He has cooler extra hands, you know, like the muck ball hand and the slimy muck looking hand. I guess I have to give this to Super7. All right, next up, Joe Eyeball. All right. So let's see here. They both pretty much have the same basic designs, right? You know, like I guess the Ultimates one has a few extra legs. It looks like has 8 legs altogether, and the cartoon version only has 6. I don't know. This guy is really cool, and I love his expression. You know, that looks perfect to how it looks in the original cartoon. This guy is completely made out of glow-in-the-dark paint, except for inside of his mouth. You know, it's got that nice pink in there, and that's actually really clean. The teeth look pretty good, and so does the pink in there. The veins on the eyes all look good. I do like how his color looks a lot. You know, that's some of my bias. Again, you know, that beautiful green color with I guess that's more of like a lime green on his abdomen there. If you look at the back, he has the tail that has the eye, where the Ultimates one, he sculpted where the tail kind of comes up, connected to his body, and then pokes out between these two arms. You can see the eye. I always thought that was a little confusing on the original action figure. It was like you looked at that original action figure, and you see like all those gross details, but they seemed a little difficult to read. Come on, stop falling over. Like the way that eye kind of hides itself into the body, you know, it was just a little off for me as a kid. I couldn't tell what was going on there. Let's see. Here's the glow-in-the-dark one standing next to the regular Ultimates Joe Eyeball. And here is the NECA one standing next to the plain NECA one. Now, there is a little bit of, like, getting him to stand can be a little tricky. If you have his head rotated too far forward, he will fall forward. So you kind of have to always tilt his head up a little bit. You know, give him that little bit of extra weight there to push him back on his tail, because the bottoms of his feet are a little rounded and he will just roll forward. Where the Ultimates version, the bottoms of his feet are just completely flat and he will stand no problem whatsoever. The Ultimates version, he has a few points of articulation. You can rotate the neck around, and these two arms rotate around. They don't have a hinge, though. This guy over here, his head is more of a ball joint. I mean, he looks pretty far down. He can look up. He can rotate all over the place. And these arms do have a hinge, and they rotate up. But other than that, he has no other articulation, not in the tail. See, let's see. If we put his head forward, see how he fell forward like that? But if you put it back, it'll weigh him to stand every time. So for me, this one I have to go with the Ultimates one. You know, just design wise, I think he's very cool looking. I love the like I said, I love the expression on his face. The teeth look really nice in there too. They're very nicely painted. I don't know. I just kind of like this guy more because he looks even creepier. You know, he looks really gross. Like this guy is a little cute. You know, like you might want this guy as like a pet or something like that. And this guy, you're like, keep that guy out of my house or else I'm gonna set him on fire. So next up is Fun with Goo. And as you can see here, I'm using my Ninja Turtle tray. That's my original from when I was a kid. I used to eat on this thing. It's loud, but, you know, it'll protect my table. I'll make sure I don't make a huge mess here. And I'm also going to use this, it's called New Goo. It's made by Mattel. And the color of this matches the NECA one, like, perfectly. Like, look at that. It goes really well with him. So the Ultimates version is really awesome because it's, you know, based more on the original action figure, which was made to, you know, so that you could play with your mutagen and your ooze with them. The muck pack here has got a big hole in it, so you can pour some goo in there, and it'll pour out of his stomach. You can also take off the removable skull cap. There's a hole there. That way you can have some goo coming out of his mouth. You know, he's a disgusting blob kind of guy, right? This brand new NECA version does not have any of those play features, unfortunately. You can't even take his skull cap or anything off, but you can fill up the muck pack with some goo, so we'll see how that looks. I don't know, you can put some goo in his hand, some muck in his hand. I don't know. Obviously, I'm calling this thing very different names because... yes, he is Muckman, but this is goo, and it could be mutagen or ooze. So... Compound X7 too, but it's not that, it's an unknown mutagen. So let's pour some in the muck pack. All right, so this stuff is moving pretty quick here. All right, I'm trying to fill them both up as quickly as possible, but the goo is a-flowing. Come on, detach here. All right. Shit. All right, so as you can see here, the goo is flowing so nicely out of Muckman's body here, right? And if you put Joe Eyeball in his muck pack, you can just push that goo down even further. If you put Joe Eyeball into the NECA version, it doesn't do nothing except just overflow. And then, of course, like I put this over his shoulder just to make it look cool too, like he's just got some goo coming off of him. I don't know, very cool. Love this action figure. All right, so for me, this category is a no-brainer. All right, I mean, come on. The Super7 Ultimates action figure was built to play with mutagen, ooze, muck, goo, whatever you want to call it. And the NECA version is cool. You know, you can put some goo on him, but, you know, it's just not as cool. You know, you don't have that interactive fun that you have as a 40-year-old man. So Super7 definitely wins Fun with Goo. And I will show you how this guy looks when you when it's dark and the goo is dripping off of his body. Still looks amazing. All right, so now there is only one more category to go, and that is glow power. You know, how good do these guys look as they glow in the dark? Going into this, when I first saw this, like, in the packages, whenever people were, like, posting pictures of him, I thought he was going to glow, like, amazingly. I thought even just by looking at him in the box, he already looked like he was, like a radioactive neon green glow, you know? And this guy I thought would come out pretty good too, because usually Super 7's glow-in-the-dark figures work really well. Maybe not Baxter Stockman. I feel like that blue glow-in-the-dark plastic just doesn't like glow as good as like Mutagen Man or even the Toxic Crusader. But I figured, you know, this guy will look good. So let's shut off the lights and see what is up. All right, so in the dark, you can't see a thing on my video, so I'm going to have to switch to picture mode here. As you can see, the Super 7 Muckman just glows incredibly. Like, he is so bright, he will actually light up objects that are standing next to him. He looks great, you know? But the NECA one hardly glows at all, and I've held this guy up to like, you know, like 2 inches away from a light bulb for like 5 minutes, and he just, you know, won't absorb any of the light and share it with us. So I was pretty disappointed in that. You know, the only thing that looks glow in the dark is that one eyeball stock coming off of Joe Eyeball. I don't know if like the rest of these guys were supposed to be painted in that glow in the dark paint or something, and it just didn't, I don't know, cover appropriately. I don't know what the heck happened here that he doesn't glow in the dark as well as I had hoped he would. But Muckman, you know, he looks fantastic, and you know, all the items that are painted on him, you can still see their silhouettes, like the teddy bear or the spider, or, you know, any of those other little objects, like the frog on his leg. You know, it's best that they didn't paint that, because now you can see the frog glowing on his leg. I don't know, he just looks great. He's one of the coolest, he's definitely one of the coolest glow-in-the-dark action figures I've ever seen. And then, of course, Joe Eyeball looks fantastic. You know, he glows, his whole body glows except for his mouth. And, you know, the NECA Joe Eyeball hardly glows at all, which is unfortunate. And there's a few things I saved for the end here too. You know, how they looked glowing in the dark when they were mint on card. You can see that here. And the Super 7 Muckman just looks awesome. You know, he glows inside that box so well. And you know, the NECA one, you don't even see it in the dark, unfortunately. And then I also saved, you know, how Muckman looked when he had, like, mutagen pouring out of his mouth and out of his stomach and everything like that while he was glowing in the dark. And it just looks awesome. You can see, like, the actual slime pouring out of his body, you know, and the glowing of his body actually creates, like, hot spots down the slime. So you can see them as clear as day, which is fantastic. And the NECA one, you know, you can sort of see the slime a little bit, but I don't know, this could also be some of the lights coming off of the Super 7 one, you know, helping to glow this slime that's coming off of the NECA version. So obviously the winner is clear here. When it comes to glow power, Super 7 decimated NECA. All right, so now we are at the end of the final category, and it's time to announce the winner. Did you keep score? I did. The winner by 6-4 is Super 7. Go ahead, Muckman. Take a bow. You know, in all honesty, this is who I thought should have won. I mean, Sculpt alone would win this for me. But, you know, I thought it'd be interesting to see, like, on a technical level, like, maybe NECA could have beaten the Super 7 Ultimates Muckman. As you can see here, NECA started off strong, but then once you got towards the end, Super 7 kind of took over. And look at that. I drew Super 7 all fancy down at the bottom in cursive. So here's a quick recap while I show some images of these two Titans next to some of the other action figures in their toy lines, and a few other comparison shots, plus some action things to wrap it up. All right, so to recap, packaging was an easy win for NECA, you know. Their packaging is very cool looking, and it's very eye-catching. I love the theme, how they look like VHS tapes. That's all good. Mint on-card display, the more I thought about it, it definitely was an easy win for NECA. I mean, you could just see everything inside of the window, you know. Everything was laid out well, and it just had really nice framing, you know, where I kind of think that maybe the Super 7 one was just kind of, you know, shoved in there a little bit. Super 7 snatched Sculpt, since the NECA action figure's face just doesn't have the correct proportions that he has in the cartoon. Color scheme could have went both ways, but NECA, in my opinion, just edged out Super 7. I really love that translucent green color. Articulation was another easy win for NECA because, you just had you have more posing opportunities with that guy. You can get a little extreme and dynamic. With Can He Stand, Super 7 won, but really, I should take away that point, because as I was making this video and I was getting my Muckman to stand in different poses, like his hip joints and his knees and his ankles just became looser and looser, to the point where it can be tricky sometimes to get the both of them to stand. So, even if I took that away, it would still be 5-4. Accessories could have been NECA's, but, the muck pack on mine won't slide on the back, and the Compound X7, will most likely turn to water in less than a year, so at least with the Super 7 ones, you can plug the muck pack in his back. Joe Eyeball was another easy win for Super 7, since, he glows in the dark, and his sculpt is just cooler, in my opinion. Fun with Goo, again, Super 7 got that one, because, he actually has a mutagen action feature, and his glowing body lights up the mutagen, making him even cooler. And last, glow power. Super 7 glows, and NECA doesn't, all right? He just doesn't glow, really. That alone can also be an automatic win for Super 7 in this glow-in-the-dark battle. Don't get me wrong, though. Both of these guys are very neat, and, I'm glad to have both. But only one Trash King reigns supreme, and that's Noxious Green Glow Muckman. I probably should have mentioned that title earlier. So have a good one, and let me know what you think. Let me know if you thought I was completely wrong with this battle.